Smithfield Middle School engineering services for air conditioning. Is anyone handling that one, or?
I'd like to make one comment on that. And I read this through, as they went through that section, it says in educational impact and non-applicable. Guess what? It is. A child goes into, I've been in that classroom. The classrooms I think are too small. The windows on one side are at the top and they're like this. You get a hot day with all those little bodies after lunch, this and that. It's terrible. There's no cross ventilation, and it's very difficult. The environment affects teaching, both for the teachers and for the children. And I wish it would have been done from day one. I guess we didn't have the funds, but we should have included then, and we didn't. And remarks were made about that. So I think it does have an educational impact. I think that NA is completely incorrect.
I think the only reason we put this one back on, I think, Tony, this was supposed to be another one for the 17th, right? We had additional questions of not the study cost, but the potential of up to 400,000, I believe was the number thrown out, and whether that was coming from the fund balance or operations. And that was with, I think, some of the additional questions that Mr. CP would have answered, so.
Yeah, I didn't know this was, I didn't know this was. I thought it was
But again, I'm going to comment, anything CP puts up there, he can't do himself. He's very frugal. He's made great improvements to the middle and high school in his time there, in his position.
So,
And it wouldn't be there if he didn't think it should be there.
so this, for everyone's edification, is not to install, but to do a study to determine any number of ways during an analysis that could be utilizing the results of this study. So
just piggybacking off of that, where are the funds coming from, Tony?
So this is the one that, like I said last meeting, that we're going to pay for it, and then the school gives us the money for it, so that we can take advantage of the reimbursable.
The reimbursement, okay.
So no matter, it doesn't matter, I mean, it does, but it doesn't really matter what the balance of the revolving fund is, because they're going to give us the money every time we get an invoice.
as long as they have it. So it does say here that North Smithfield Public Schools will pay a fee of $18,000 to train for services and time invested if we do not enter into the agreement within the 4-week period. I don't know if anybody saw that. And that is dated May 10. So that throws a little bit of a
That's on the last day.
wrench on the last day, right? So I don't know how the school department would be. Would you be reaching out to them tomorrow, saying it was approved? Would it still fall under the 4-week period? This is why we need somebody here from the school department.
So I don't think there's the urgency on this one. I don't think there's any contracts that, like a project that has to get started.
Well, yeah, they'll pay an extra $18,000.
No, what I'm saying is, I'm saying if you wanted to hold off, if you weren't comfortable at this point with this one.
Well, it is, well, I'm not comfortable because he's not here, but I think, it would behoove us to look at the fine print, so to speak, when it says that we're gonna pay a fee of $18,000 to train if we do not enter into the agreement. So, I guess my question is,
Looks like we're locked.
is the contract for 18? And then we have to pay the 18 if we don't enter into it? That's what it looks like.
Looks like we're locked in either way.
I think the analysis is 18,000. If you don't enter into if you enter into a contract with them, the 18,000 will be part of the contract if it's done within 4 weeks. If not, it's 18,000.
It's 18,000, right?
I think that's what they're getting at.
I think that's what
I think
it
that's
is.
what they're getting at.
Ladies, at your committee meetings, has this been discussed as far as the ear? And what did the budget committee?
Well, the budget committee wanted to move forward because of the situation that it gets so hot. The end of the school, but also in September when they start school.
It's the same.
It's extremely warm
Mike?
at the middle school.
So the budget,
They're looking to get the engineering, how can it be done, by what means? So, but as far as it being presented to the school committee, I don't think, it may have been mentioned, but not that a vote was ever taken.
but the budget committee deems it necessary, and it seems where the savings would be if it's done due diligently and we don't wait for 2 or 3 years.
Well,
Well, I don't think they discussed,
I'm
Yeah.
exaggerating.
Yeah.
it wasn't a, is this on?
So how can you sign it if it wasn't discussed?
yeah, well, that's my question, is it signed by Jim?
Yeah.
Right,
it's
no,
signed.
it was, is it signed by?
Yes, it is.
All right,
521.
So I think it was
So it must have
probably
been approved at the committee level?
approved with the budget committee that let's at least look into it and what can be done.
Okay.
Any other discussion?
Well, we could approve it and based on, and then contingent on clarification of the timeline that was still within that timeline.
Absolutely. Would you like to put that forward, Mr. Burrows?
Do you want me to make?
I was gonna make a motion to
Okay.
table it, but
It's up to you.
I don't want to table it.
I'm gonna make a motion to table the request for engineering proposal in the amount of $18,000 from Train.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Biragad.
No.
Ms. Hamilton.
Yes.
Mrs. O'Hara.
No.
Mr. Ogier.
Yes.
Ms. Alves.
Yes.
So it will go on the June 17 meeting, the next week.
Next item is discussion by council vote or other action on continuation of public hearing on FY 24-25 budget. We have a motion to open the public hearing.
I'll make a motion to open the public hearing.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Biragad.
Yes.
Ms. Hamilton.
Yes.
Mrs. O'Hara.
Yes.
Mr. Ogier.
Yes.
Ms. Alves.
Yes. Would anyone like to speak during the public hearing session? And if we could keep it to 3 minutes, please.
Joey Savigny, Chairman of the Budget Committee. I've got some answers for questions that I received from the council. One of the questions was regarding comp time for the police department budget, whether it was accurate or not. We redid the numbers, look quick. It's comp time buyback, its expense is, you know there's gonna be an expense that you're gonna incur. And that number that you have is based on past years, and we're on the conservative side. It can be increased if you guys deem necessary. Another question was, please explain the $75,000 from the unrestricted fund for use that is undetermined. What that was is we were budgeting a line item as a reserve for unforeseen expenses to offset any requests of finding money during the mid-year. It was kind of just a tool to help have money in case we needed it. Another question was, explain how the raises were identified and what criteria did you see performance reviews? The raises were based on cost of living adjustments that were benchmarked from the Social Security of 3.2% increase. Another question was, why are software and licenses in the IT department going up almost $20,000? Those increases are due to a new website and increases in licenses and security. This is common in most companies and municipalities due to tightening up their security. What data was used for the police department vehicle fuel increases of $20,000? That was actually based off the actuals for this year. Another question was 15,000 plus increase in building and zoning. Was there an added position, and what is the breakdown of the raises? Building and zoning is an increased position from part-time to full-time, and there was also money appropriated for a new map plotter for them. There was a question raised in regards to professional services for the highway department. There was an increase in engineering costs, and that's due to having old infrastructure in the roads that are being repaved. They need the engineering to be able to fix the drainage and other underlying issues with the roads. There was a question as to why is the line item for the senior services going up again, and where is the request from Woonsocket, and what's the breakdown? There's no increase to that line item from last year. It was just funded differently. Last year, 20,000 came from the budget, 20,000 came from the reserves. Linda's here. I'm hoping she's gonna get up and speak after I'm done, and she's gonna explain to you just exactly what the senior services entails. Question as to how many retirees get health insurance and when does that terminate? Currently, there are 22 that are getting health insurance, and that terminates at age 65. Why would capital and general government go down 210,000? If you recall, last year at the last minute, we had to appropriate 210,000 for Hollowell School. That's the 200,000 that you're not seeing this year. And the last one was, what percentage of OPEB are we currently funded? Currently, it's approximately 25% funded. That's basically all I have at the moment. And I'd like to have Linda get up and just explain to you what senior services does.
But before she does, I have a quick question. And I can't wrap my head around the fund balance account. I get the purpose of it. There used to be a contingency line item, and then the fund balance came, and we got rid of the contingency. But I don't understand why we just don't budget this specific item. I know that it's an accounting, it has to come in and come out, but what specifically is that 75 funding?
Specifically, it's not funding anything. It's funding when you guys sit there and look at Tony and go, where can we get $10,000 to do this project?
So
Or where can we get $5,000 to do that project? So it was just giving him a spot to be able to take money from instead of having to go searching for it.
It seems like at that point, though, that we would want to do a fund balance adjustment, like we did earlier in the year for the Hallowell project, where we get up here, we make a motion, we amend it, we know that it comes in and out. I just worry that if that 75,000 is there and it goes unchecked, you could dip into that for operational expenses. And I think the intent is probably for capital expenses, but I know I've heard that it could be used for contracts or other things as well, and that worries me, because then you're gonna set yourself up for a position where you're drawing down the fund balance to fund the operations, and I don't think it should be used for that. I think it should be used for capital-like projects as they arise. That's just my only concern with the 75,000. I'd rather see us dedicate a line item to it to be able to fund it specifically. So we know if it's truly operational, it's baked in year over year.
Any other questions? Thank you. Like I said, at this point, I'd like to just have Linda come up and say a few things.
I have just one quick question on the raises. You said they were based on Social Security cost of living
Yep.
adjustment?
Yep.
So you didn't use any of the, so is it a 3% raise for the current contract for the employees?
Depends on which contract you're looking
So
at.
the town employees?
I believe they're 3.25 currently. 3.25?
3.25? Everyone? For union? So that would be the,
Local 94's contract, not the police.
not the
Police is
police,
different.
right, right.
3%.
Okay. Okay, so, the raises that you put in were, because I noticed some were like 3.75, some were like 3.25, so I was just wondering, you know, why there was any discrepancy and why you wouldn't follow.
Are you talking about on the contractual side, or are you talking about on the?
Yeah, no, I'm
town
following
employees?
on, you know, in the, like, for instance, the clerk in municipal court, 3.75, and then the TA put in for 3.25. You know, so why is there 3.25? And why is there 3.75? And then the others are all 3%, so that would make sense because of the police contract. You're saying that's 3% across the board?
Are you inviting me into the conversation?
Yeah, I'd love to, yes.
Okay, yeah, I would just suggest you wait till we get to that point when you're reviewing the budget, so that notes can be refreshed, and I can answer them now, but I think we're we're under public input at this point, so that's just my suggestion for the council.
All right, just curious about the rationale. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else like to get up during? Sure.
Linda Tebow, 83 St. Paul Street in North Smithfield. And I just, what Joey said about, it's the same amount as last year. And just to remind everyone why it went up last year, 2 years ago, we had a grant from the Housing Department of Healthy Aging. That grant was given to Aging Well, Inc., because we didn't have a senior center here in town. It was given to Aging Well because we had a presence here already. We were giving 3 classes at that time, offering 3 classes at Scouters Hall under our 3B grant. That's a federal grant that I worked under for a lot of years, since 2009. So then the following year, you did get that same grant. And so we only had 3 classes that we offered at Scouters Hall. When we got that grant the year before, we had increased that to about 8 classes a week and many other things that we offered. And that's why we got the extra money. But this year it's the same amount. But I'll quickly go through this so I don't run out of 3 minutes. Here we go. So money allocated to Aging Well, Inc. was used for the following classes at Scouters Hall and for services provided by North Smithfield residents. Participation in classes offered by Aging Well at Scouters Hall have been brisk. This is the accurate schedule of classes offered, and it's also been in the newsletter. On Monday, we have Zumba Gold at 10 o'clock, Sit Fit and Be Strong at 11, and a mat yoga at 3. On Tuesday, we had mindful meditation at 1:30. Thursday, we have Zumba Gold again, and Keep Moving at 1 o'clock. Friday, we have line dancing, yoga lattes, and fancy follies at 3 o'clock. And we're putting in a new class starting next Monday at the 17th, Keep Moving with Steve. In addition to these classes offered at Scouters, Aging Well offers the following services for North Smithfield seniors: the coordination and delivery of 6,000 Meals on Wheels to 49 homebound residents of North Smithfield. When volunteers are not available to deliver the meals, Aging Well staff completes the delivery. Coordination of meals and volunteers for the community table, formerly the congregate meal, at the Meadows Senior Housing in North Smithfield. Residents at Deerfield Commons would like to become a meal site, and I'm working with management to make that happen, and they're giving me some grief, but I won't give up. We schedule appointments for North Smithfield residents with a community information specialist as needed. That's Guy Boulay, and he helps them navigate the muddy waters of Medicare and such. I personally provide a blood pressure clinic nurse consultation every Thursday down at Woonsocket Senior Center, and every week I have about 6 or 7 North Smithfield residents that come to see me. 5 North Smithfield residents participated in Aging Well's Adult Day program of Home for the Day, and sadly, because of reimbursement we get from third-party payers, we had to close. A sad day for us. Aging Well also served North Smithfield residents on many occasions, such as the annual Veterans Appreciation Dinner, the Intergenerational Flag Day celebration, which we'll be having again on Friday. We have an Adopt-A-Vet program, the Vietnam War Memorial Day Luncheon, distribution of gift certificates to local restaurants, and referrals to appropriate resources as needed. We've also expanded our outreach into our own community by offering lunch and learn programs in senior housing in North Smithfield. I personally presented a fall prevention lunch and learn for residents at Colonial Village. We saw about 20 people. They like to stay in their apartments there. And at Deerfield Commons, the same program, we had about 30 residents. The Rhode Island College senior nursing student that I precept one every semester, and they must do a presentation, so I bring them out there, presented a cholesterol lunch and learn at the Meadows, and he had about 30 people. We've offered social events well attended by North Smithfield seniors. We've done luau's, sock hops, and especially the Great Gatsby Gala held at a mansion in Woonsocket, and someone I know was there. Many North Smithfield seniors dressed in flapper attire danced and enjoyed a very special night. Now, I'm just letting you know, September is National Senior Center Month, and I have a very special event in mind to celebrate North Smithfield seniors, even though we don't have a senior center yet. To be continued. Any questions?
More of a comment. I've been to the classes over at
Yes, you
Scouters,
have.
and they are extremely well attended. Sometimes there's not even room for the amount of people that you have. So that money is not going to waste. Those classes are well attended, and they're legit. I mean, it was a good workout.
And he kept up.
I did.
Kinda, yeah. With effort. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else like to get up and speak during public hearing?
I guess I'd like to know, could we have the finance, some questions were asked at the last meeting, and the finance director said he'd get back to us with those responses. Could we hear those responses before we have to ask new questions? There was a list that he was keeping.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I had talked to, I think, TJ, you and I had talked on the phone at some point about most of those questions.
You
Yeah,
said
yeah.
you would answer them
Yeah.
in public,
So, yeah, no, I'm just saying.
Critical
TJ
piece.
So I know one of them was stabilization exemption, correct?
Well, I'd like to go in order, I guess, because the first question I asked, I think, was, why are we showing a use of fund balance of 75,000? And I know Joey just answered it, but I don't know if that wasn't the answer to my question, because my question was, you show it as an expenditure, as a revenue, use of fund balance, 75,000. And the offset to that is 75,000 as an expense into restoration of fund balance. That makes no sense whatsoever to me. So.
It's contingency. It's not, I
Well,
mean, we
then
could
call
rename it.
Then let's call it a contingency.
Well, we'll rename it for you.
It says, it says both. It says restoration of fund balance and contingency.
Not on this one.
This is very inappropriate, this back and forth between the,
As a public hearing, he can ask questions.
he can ask us the questions. He can't have it absolute going back and forth with the,
Well, Anthony had said that he would get the responses. So are we going to answer questions, or do you want to answer the questions?
If the council would like them answered, yes.
It's the budget, yeah.
You're gonna come up eventually, yeah.
How many questions do you have? We have 3 minutes.
Well, I asked quite a few questions last month, and none of them, I
Well-
thought we were coming and he was gonna give the answers to them. So I'll ask, I guess I'll jump to the next one. He was supposed to explain to us why the FY '24 budget showed a use of fund balance of 520,910, because I don't think that was actually in last year's budget as part of the revenue, so I don't understand that entry. The main thing that I asked was, with reference to the police account, the police salary account. And Joey just was talking about the comp time payout, but I didn't raise that question. I raised the question of, why aren't we budgeting for comp time earnings? And there was a discrepancy, and people didn't seem to agree that we paid comp time earnings. And I said, I will forward you the spreadsheet that I got from the payroll department tomorrow morning. And I did do that. And you all read that there's $143,000 in comp time earnings. So why isn't that a line item expense in this budget? And why not, we know we're gonna have to pay someone to cover. If I take 4 hours of time off today, and you need me on my shift to continue minimum staffing requirements, somebody's gonna be working for me above their regular 38 hours or 36 or whatever it is. So you're gonna be paying John if John comes in to work for me. So that is not even budgeted in here. And that's what I wanted to know. Why isn't it budgeted in here? Where is it budgeted in here if it is?
You want me to answer that? Yeah, so you don't budget for comp time. Someone works, you just pay it out of salary. Comp time is a liability. I know accounting is rough for some people, but it's a liability. If you look on the audit, it's seen as Yeah, it's a balance sheet account, but I forgot the name of what it's labeled, but, you don't put that on an income statement, so.
We're talking about two different things. He's talking about the.
You don't budget for comp time.
Comp time payout for the people when they retire, if they have days.
That's not what I'm talking about.
Okay, well, I'm talking about the 143,000, and what you said really.
A liability.
I don't understand that answer that he just gave, even if I were to concede that that was the case, which I don't at all. Because if your budget if your budget contains the numbers, and you expend every line item within that salary budget, that's in the salary budget, then tell me where the 143,000 is coming from.
See, my understanding of comp time is that if you earn some comp time and you want to take some time off, then you can take the time off, manpower permitting, that doesn't create an overtime position. Is that the case?
It's not just overtime.
No, that's not the case.
Somebody's got to fill in for you, because
That's what I mean, that it would create
No,
an
not
overtime
as-
position.
Well, not all the time. Sometimes it would, in my mind too, but it would at least require someone fill in for you if they were under. You know, they might be under for the hours of overtime, but I agree with you. They're paying for it.
Then it gets charged to overtime.
But
If
you're
we're
missing
pulling staff from, we need to pull someone in, they need to stay longer, then we pull
So
that from
you're
overtime.
saying you're not budgeting for overtime, that's basically.
We budget for overtime, we don't budget for comp time.
It's not comp time. You should be budgeting for comp time.
We talked to the auditors about this, and I've talked to other finance directors, and
Really?
really?
Okay, do you have any?
Really?
No, I'm not accepting that as an answer, Kim.
Well,
It makes no sense whatsoever. You've
all
been
he's
paying
giving you.
143, you paid $143,000 last year in comp time earnings, and it shows up nowhere in here. It's not in the salary account, because that's exactly what I had. So there should be a line item in this budget for comp time earnings, that you're paying people to cover for the comp time. Because if you don't have it, and you expend everything to the penny of what you budgeted for in the other categories with that, you're gonna run a deficit of
I got
$143,000.
it.
That number has been growing every year because of the changes in the contract language for comp time. We've expanded the number of hours they can get for comp time and accumulate and run off and then start over at scratch again. So, and we've increased the hourly wages of the people, so that number's gonna keep growing. I think the year before it was like 87,000. And I think we never noticed it. It was probably never picked up before, because there was always money in other line items within the police department budget that were overestimated, and you had the money available from the other line items that you were grabbing from. So, but it's been a game, and it's not, it's a gambling game, and you shouldn't be playing this gambling game. You should be budgeting for comp time. I sent you the spreadsheets, it's directly from the payroll department, I don't get it.
I know. Thank you.
And I'd like to encourage you to ask the town, well, never mind, I'll save it. But I think a line item should be added for $143,000 as an expense in the police department salaries called, just what we just said, the comp time earnings. Because let me see, I saw another expense in there that isn't. We budget for overtime, we budget for longevity, we budget for holiday. We do budget for the simple little comp time payout of like the $15,000 thing, but we don't have any line item in here that says comp time earnings.
Okay.
And that's not part of overtime. So I don't understand how it's been happening, but the other question I had was,
Do you have any more questions, Mike?
well, I wanted him to answer the other questions that I asked, but so if I have to be limited to 3 minutes, which I said before, we never did that in a budget hearing. You held
I
the
know,
budget
but
hearing.
we have a whole room. Can we just
Yeah.
see if there's anyone else, and then we
Yeah,
can?
and then come up a second time, sure.
All right.
I didn't understand you to say that, that's
All right,
fine.
thank you. Anyone else want to ask any more questions during the public hearing? Anyone else? Good. Yeah, go ahead.
My name is Jean Mayo. I live at 11 Tall Timber Trail, and I'm the vice chair of the school committee. I've been around for a long time, and sadly, the budget battle never changes, and it becomes more challenging and frustrating as the years go on. And I know you feel it because you have so many constituencies fighting for a piece of the pie. But our job as school committee members is to advocate for our students and the quality education that they deserve, and you share the financial part of that responsibility. We're an excellent school system. We're a gem in Northern Rhode Island. At the previous budget meeting, Jim explained all the positives that take place here in town. We spend our money wisely, frugally, and thoughtfully, but we need you to help us continue to offer the excellent education that our students and our community expect. We're still working to recover from the harm of COVID. There's no fluff in our budget. We don't want to cut positions and programs. And I'm hoping you saw the letter that Jim sent out late this afternoon, because that really explains what our need is. So I'm asking for your help to make a decision on the budget that will further our common goal of quality education, which is the single most important asset of any community. We want to move forward and create future opportunities for our students, and that is a goal that we all should be working towards together. Thank you.
May I add something? Mrs. Mayo, at this time, what kids have gone through, a normal process was cut off. They missed steps. They went from like 7th, they're freshmen. The normal things they would have done were not there. The camaraderie, it wasn't there. And some kids made it through. And it's not like you're playing a sport, you break your hand, you know what you have to do. When children are facing really psychological problems, you don't see it, but it's there, and it affects them all the way around. And we cannot stop programs, counseling, etc., because they need things that concern in school, but then you have parents are working with doctors at home. And for some have made progress, but for others, you can see the change. If we fail them, because students have a complete component, and you know that as well as I do. And if you miss one, it affects them greatly. With everything today, we have to work as a team. And we can't put a price on this. You can't. It's not fluff. And I will work with you with that, because I don't think it's fluff. It's a real necessity.
No, and I agree with, and I appreciate your thoughts. We do see the problems, and we feel that the help they need is obvious, and we're doing everything that we possibly can to speak to that. And I think that Peg is actually going to speak to that issue.
May I, before you get up, I didn't receive anything from the chairman, so I don't know. Mr. Beauregard said he did. Is it possible for him to read it into the letter that he sent out, read it into the record, or do you have a copy of that?
I do have a copy.
Would you be able to read that?
Surely.
If you have a moment?
Let me just ask, Lisa, I don't know if you want to speak to the letter that Jim wrote, or you probably can do a better job than I, but I'll be happy to read the letter.
You know, I think it would be better off if we waited until we got to the school budget.
Okay.
No, that's not I'm just suggesting it. I'm not making the decision, but that we wait until we get to the school budget to have the school committee come up there and discuss it with us.
It's up to them, yeah. It's up to you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak? Peg, did you want?
So you kind of set me up there. That's what I was just going to get to. So,
Very good.
Hi, my name is Peg Bott. I live on 440 Buxton Street. I'm a member of the school committee. I also work at the Rhode Island Department of Education. I probably don't need to tell you this, but students continue to struggle post-COVID. It's not just the academics, it's the mental health. Mental health issues among teens is now a national crisis. If you've got children, you've probably heard about it. You can tutor a student to bring up a math score, but providing mental health supports is more challenging. And the catch-22 is that if you don't address mental health, you can't even get to the academics. I manage survey works at RIDE. The good news is that North Smithfield students are more and more positive about their experiences in our schools. More students feel like they belong, and then they have an adult to talk to. I believe this is due to the commitment of the schools to address the mental health and the social emotional support needs of our students. Psychologists, social workers, and the many opportunities students have to be a part of something are making a difference. When students feel valued and understood, they engage in school. And when they engage, they learn. Please fund the differentiated needs of all our students. Now is not the time to let them down.
Thank you.
Thank you. Can I just ask one question, not necessarily of Peg, but just of the schools in general, since we're talking about it? I know one of the questions I asked was did we end up getting fully funded from the state? Because I know that they went above this, the House essentially rejected the governor's plan, so did we make up that difference? At least it'd be good to know for our deliberations. We did? Okay. Yeah, not discounting funding, it's just important to know, that's all. Thank you.
And when we have our results, if you guys want like a little presentation on survey works, I'm happy to come and tell you what
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anthony, can you verify the number that we have on our paper is actually what they got funded for?
Formula school formula aid, 7,904,577, and then high cost special ed, 85,308.
So no, right?
It's on the town council, which I don't understand what that column's for.
It's in revenue on the town council column.
Revenue page.
Yeah.
Copy at my table, just expenses. So.
Anyone else like to speak during public forum, or any other questions? Anthony, are you gonna be able to answer any of Mr. Clifford's questions if he gets up quickly, or is it something you have to?
Depends on what they are, but yeah, I should be able to, yeah.
You already asked them, right, Mike, last week?
Well, so if I remember correctly, there was one regarding the stabilization exemption on the revenue side. He asked what that is. That is when, it's hard to figure out what that might be, which is why we budget it for something so low, and then we end up coming in and getting a little bit more, because it's based off of people who have passed away, or before they passed away, rather. A senior will get an exemption, and they won't pay a certain amount of tax over X amount of years. Then when they pass away, they have to pay that tax from their estate, essentially. And we don't know when people are gonna die. So it's kind of, we can't justify as to when death rates might be up from year to year. So we put in 5,000, and if it comes in higher, then great. There's a surplus. There we go. I know that there was the fund balance, the 75,000. That, as we've already said, that's for contingency issues throughout the year to cover things that happen when we need to find money, instead of me pulling it out of thin air. There was the overtime, there was the comp time. I don't think there was anything else. You can correct me if I'm wrong.
Got it.
I was asking, one question was, I couldn't understand why you were budgeting $110,000 in anticipated revenue for the town clerk recording fees, when the document that you provided us at the last minute showed that we had budgeted $100,000 for this year, and we had only reached $54,000 by the March 31st of 2024. And that fee is, for recording fees, of realty transactions, and it's kind of hard to believe that you're gonna make up $50,000 in the last, 3 months of the year or whatever in realty transactions, because they're coming slimmer and slimmer and fewer. So did you look into why you're budgeting, why you increase that as a revenue rather than decrease it?
I don't set the department's budgets. The departments will present their budget, and it's not up to me to decide on whether they will or will not earn something or expend something. I just facilitate it. But I always do try to advise, but she's looking at it now.
Well, can I ask then, for the council, could you ask the administrator why he's recommending it be increased to $110,000 next year? And I'd like to know, do we have a current year-to-date number for that? Because I believe he also said he was gonna provide new year-to-date numbers as of May 31st.
Do you have any more questions about the budget? Because I think we have questions about revenues also, so.
Because you have what?
We have questions about all the revenues too, so
Your time is
are
up.
you all set with budget questions, or?
Well, those are the questions I asked last week that he was gonna look into.
Okay, and so did you get your answers?
No.
Other than
Did
the
you get
revenue
it?
ones?
Huh?
Other than the revenue answers, did you?
No, I mean, he just said, well, okay, I'll ask the budget committee why they're recommending that number, 110,000. Why are they recommending an increase in revenue anticipated in those two categories? In one category, the other kind of category tied to the tax stamps directly, we budgeted 190,000 this year. We've only collected 96,000, and they're keeping it 190,000. I see a shortage of revenue coming up, folks. So I would like the answer to those questions. Last week when Mr. Savini was here at the last meeting, I asked the questions, and he wasn't speaking that night, so I wonder if he might be in a better mood to speak tonight.
Did you get a new packet from the back of the room?
No.
Oh, you should do that.
So, Mike, while you look at that, can I just ask some questions on revenues? Because
Yep.
there are a lot of questions on these revenues, because
First of all, which one are we looking at?
the revenue page, the one
The
we
one
got in
that
our
we had
packet, yeah.
from Joanne?
Yeah.
So many.
Because if you look at the revenues that you gave us in our packet, a lot of these revenues that we're budgeting for next year, and you're having actualized revenues as of May 31st,
For which line, I'm sorry?
for a big majority of these, most of these revenues, a lot of them we haven't even hit like 50 or 60%.
Again, that's, any of the departments that might be here, you would want to pose what they are projecting for their revenues to them. I don't set.
But Tony, isn't that your job?
I mean, you're
What's my job?
finance director.
That's your job, though, to make sure that we hit the revenues and monitor the budget, right? Like, if I was a department head and I said, oh, I'm gonna make $200,000 this year, but I only really bring in 10,000, isn't your job to be the fail-safe to ensure that we actually collect the revenue number?
If they know something that I do not, in terms of them being able to hit a revenue number, that's their knowledge to have, not mine. I facilitate this budget for the department heads.
I'm
I
gonna
present it to the TA.
I'm gonna respectfully disagree with that,
Yeah.
because I think
That's
you are
fine.
where the buck stops in the budget process.
Incorrect.
And
The
first of all,
department
Tony,
head-
you can be rude to other people, you will not be rude to me. You will show me the same respect that I show you meeting after meeting.
and I
Hold on a second.
respectfully disagree.
I have the floor.
Okay.
I said I respectfully disagree with you. We are talking about a budget here. If we miss our revenue, that is a problem. That means we can't fund the rest of the expenses, which then means you're gonna have to potentially send out a fifth quarter tax roll. And I can tell you right now, I do not wanna be the council, I can't speak for anybody else, but I don't wanna be a council that does that. So for you to say you don't know, but yet you asked for a 17% increase on your salary, you should know.
That's a whole different topic.
No.
No, it's not.
You should
It is.
know.
That shouldn't.
Because compensation should be tied to the experience and the job knowledge. And I've sat back quietly, and I've agreed with a lot of what you said. You and I talk very well. But when you say you don't know the revenues that the department head may bring in or doesn't know, that's a problem. It makes me wonder if we really know the ins and the outs and the reconciliations and everything that we've kind of spoken about throughout the year, if there's any improvement at all. I just have a hard time not understanding how the finance director wouldn't know a specific department's revenues.
If a department presents that they're going to experience higher revenues within a specific item, and they prove to, and when they go to present to the budget committee and the TA at the same time, because they present at the same time to both parties, how am I supposed to do my due diligence on the fact that they're gonna earn less? I don't know, I'm not in their department, I'm not
But you
a
look at
professional of their
historicals.
department.
But you generate the P&Ls, right?
I do generate, and I can provide the facts of the history. Hey, this is not lining up with what you guys are presenting.
So just so I said another way, just so I understand, if somebody proposes $200,000 and they're only at $10,000, and there's no accruals going forward to capture the rest of the $190,000, we just say, sure, they said it, that's good
The
to go for the
department can
budget?
sit,
Because that's just how it's sounding now.
the department can put in a request for what they think they're going to earn in revenue, then it goes to the TA, the TA.
I understand the process.
Right, so where does the finance director say incorrect? No, you're not allowed to do that. That's
So-
what I'm asking.
Whose position is it to say, no, I don't think you're
What-
gonna
as
meet
far as the
this
budget-
revenue? Because almost every department here is so overstated. I mean, I'm just gonna take town clerk for an example. Last year's budget was 322. So far, we've actualized 239,000. Our budget for this year is $332,000. How are we gonna get there? When we haven't even gotten to 250 for this year, and our budget is 322. And then you can go to the municipal court, 75,000 last year, this year. So far, we've actualized 48,000. And this is as of May 31st. We have 1 month. How are we gonna get to that number?
I don't know. I don't work for the municipal court. And when I guide the departments, the TA, and the budget committee through this process. I provide my input where I can and where I have knowledge on historical data. I don't know the proceedings of municipal court. I don't know the proceedings of recording fees and real estate stamps.
So said in that way, do you agree with the revenue numbers here then?
If a department head is, when the department head first puts in their request, we're just past the halfway mark. And a lot of times, we might get a huge surge of revenue in the latter half of the year. So, that they might know about, or that they're expecting, that we might not experience.
But this is as of 5/31.
This,
We have 1 month to
but
go.
when they presented it to the budget committee, when they presented their department request, it was back in January.
Right, but we just got these, so there was plenty of time to go back and kind of.
I can't
true it
change,
up.
I can't go back and change the department request. That's changing what was advertised to the public.
No.
Yes.
Wouldn't change that, no.
So you got building and zoning. Last year's budget was 130. So far, this year, we've come in at 182,000, and then we budgeted 150. So, and then the year before, we actualized 176. The year before, we actualized 159. It just doesn't make any sense.
So so then that's when the town council says, okay, I think that the department's wrong, I think that the TA's suggestion was wrong, and I think that the budget committee's wrong, we should do this.
So, hold on a
So
second,
we're
though.
gonna
So-
redo the whole budget.
Right, so what is a realistic, wait, but Tony, where does your role come into guiding us then? Because if you don't know, how are we supposed to have any knowledge of what
You're
the
supposed to have your
department
department heads sit here and question.
I understand that process, and don't worry, we will ask the questions.
Right.
But.
So why are we drilling the finance director on why the?
Because it's your
town
job,
clerk-
Tony.
No, it's not my job to
It's not
sit
my
here
job
and
to know what
explain as to why the
it's
real
not
estate-
our job to know what the department head is. We can go around and around on this all day. We'll ask the department heads. But if you think that any of these numbers are wrong, and you've been issuing P&Ls, and there's been a reconciliation process, and we think that there isn't a big influx of cash coming in the last 30 days, or less than that, it's 2 weeks, then we need to know about it so we can accurately project the revenue number. There needs to be a check and balance. It can't just be all on the department head to give us the number and say that's good as gold. Like, that's it. That's the number.
Like you said, we're just gonna keep going around and around about this.
Yeah, we're just,
I think a member of the budget committee wanted to be heard
yeah,
on.
that's fine. I'm happy with that.
Hello, I'm Christine Early. I'm a member of the Budget Committee, the Vice Chair of the Budget Committee. I live at 140 Pond House Road. So I think part of the issue is the timing, as sort of been alluded to here, is the timing of when the Budget Committee is actually doing their work, right, with each department. We do look at historicals, and we look at a pattern over time, so it's like an analytical procedure, we would say, in auditing, where we look at, okay, what did we take in, what did we budget for in the last 2 years? What was our track record for how accurately the budget reflected the number? And in most of the cases, the departments are pretty close on these types of things, but some cases, like if you're looking at, let's just talk about recording fees, right? Budgeted in fiscal year 2022 for 115, came in at 133. Next year, budgeted 125, came in at 87. Next year, it was budgeted at 100, came in at 69, right? So sometimes it is off. But the problem is, I'm looking at these numbers as of 5/31, the actuals. It's very different than what we see back in February. And we're trying to project forward what it could be by June, right? And
Sure.
I think we're all coming
Right.
up with the fact that
Absolutely right. Yep.
it's not a great process in terms of that. But my understanding is that we use the best information we have at the time. We come up with our budget, but once our budget is done, Tony can't just go and just say, you know what, those numbers were off, the budget committee's numbers were off, we're gonna redo them, or, you know. And so the fact that we have the 5/31 numbers so far after, you know, we tried to be proactive this year and get our budget out by early May. And now it's news to us when we see the 5/31 actuals, what's really happening here. And so I guess the only way to really address this is for the town council then to make the correction, like, okay, now based on current information, what we know now, projecting out 1 month into the future, we're not gonna make those targets, and so we need to knock those numbers down for next year. I don't know of, you know, how we fix that and how we can, you know, change that process. We could work as a budget committee up to the very last minute with the most recent numbers that we have, and that might make it more accurate from our end, but we just do it so far in advance that it's hard to predict.
So Christine, let me ask you a question. So how often do you get a financial monthly so that you can see as you are working, like, you know, you see January year-to-date, February year-to-date, March
What we
year-to-date?
do is, say we're in March, for example,
Do you see the
and
March
we're going through, we're
31st?
meeting with the department, we'll say, what are the most recent year-to-date numbers as of right now? Can you get us the most recent, where we stand as of like March 15th or March 31st or whatever? And Tony will pull those numbers for us and get us those, so that we can try to be as accurate as we can. But again, you know, I look at things like real estate recording fees. I can imagine they will be down because they're just fewer transactions. There just are. And so we try to take that into account too when we're setting it. Sometimes we talk to the department, they'll maybe, I don't want to say they paint a rosy picture or something like that, but they might give us a reason why they think the fees could be up this year as opposed to last year or something like that. But, you know, it's an imperfect process, unfortunately, just based on the knowledge that we have that's kind of so far out of date. It's the same with the school department. We get, you know, their numbers as of like February, and then we're trying to predict what it will be in June. It's hard.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Christine.
Thank you.
Anyone else want to speak at the public hearing? Like 3 minutes, please.
Well, I just wanted to say that when I served on the budget committee, it wasn't, we had earlier dates than what you have now. We changed them so that the budget, we recommended a change and the council implemented the change, that the budget didn't have to be provided to you until June. But it used to have to be provided by April. But even with that, I don't understand because, and I'd like to, I mean, this is the administrator's budget. I understand what Tony's trying to say. This isn't his budget, it's the administrator's budget. But if the administrator is recommending 110,000 for that, I mean, it's simple to calculate. I don't care when you got the year-to-date numbers. If you got the year-to-date numbers on March 31st, and that's 7 months, divide the amount you've got there, and then add on the rest of the month of the years. We used to divide everything by 12, and then just figure out how much more is coming in. It usually works. So I don't know why, you know, it is kind of ridiculous, and I would like to hear from the administrator why he didn't do that, because he's, you know, been on the, I mean, it's his budget. And you're asking Tony the questions, which I can understand, but I do think he's supposed to provide some guidance to the boards, or, you know, at least point out to people that, hello, this is way too low. What we should have right now is way too low. So. And I would like to ask a question on, aside from that, I'd like to ask a question of the school department. Are they still asking for the increase that they asked for at the last meeting, or is that modified because of the new state aid?
So that will be in
Well, does someone want to read it? Because
Yeah,
we
that's
really,
why I
we
wanted
really
to
can't
read.
accept it the day of the meeting, so if someone wants to read it and put it into record, but we really can't receive something the day of and act on it.
Would you like to? You have a copy, right? Thank you.
Thank you, James.
Yeah. Anyone timing? I don't have my phone, no one's timing. I thought.
In the letter that he sent, Madam President, honorable council members, he apologized for not being here tonight, and the important part is that if you fund us the Budget Committee's recommendation of a 0.5% increase and an additional $106,000, also finding $314,855 in the current budget, it will bring us to a total of $529,117, which includes a $100,000 reduction in funding for transportation. The funding requested also fully funds the teacher's contract that will be before you soon. If fully funded, we should be able to bring back most of the teachers and staff laid off and not have to cut any programs. As previously stated, we properly managed our ESSER funds to use them for the intended purposes and not supplant funds, causing a financial cliff. We have not had a budget shortfall in at least 9 years, and we've properly administered the school department budget. Although I will continue to emphasize the additional needs from the pandemic of psychologists, more individualized attention, and interventionists, we are on the right path to recovery. We have previously mentioned all the positive achievements of the schools, and I hope you continue to fund the good work done and not go backwards. We are truly blessed to have a great school system. Respectfully, James Lombardi III.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else like to speak at the public hearing?
He just did 3 minutes.
So the bottom line there is, what was the number you're asking for additionally? Above and beyond what your initial request was?
Total of $529,117.
Okay, then at the last meeting, we were talking, I had some questions for Lisa, and I asked where they were gonna get the money to fund that salary, and I thought, she said there was $122,000 budgeted for teacher negotiations for the settlement. And then you had more money in another account.
The rest of it would come from a turnover allowance.
Okay, but where was the turnover allowance in the budget?
It wasn't, it was negotiated. So the balance between what it costs for the teachers.
Okay, but what I'm saying is, or what I'm trying to figure out is, if you need that
Why is he
amount of money,
addressing her?
and you didn't budget for turnover allowance in your budget, if you
Madam
put that
President.
$300,000 in the budget now as a reduction to things, then you don't need the same amount of money.
Shouldn't be addressing
You
that.
do.
He
Why?
can ask a question, Claire.
But the people there, instead of addressing here,
Lisa, do
And
you
it's
mind
over
just
3
going up
minutes.
so you can
Can you
answer
come out, please?
questions?
if I can.
That would be great.
Or give her a mic.
Oh, you have a mic?
She's got a
Yeah,
mic.
okay.
Listen, this is a joke, and I'm not even gonna participate anymore. It's just obscene. You're gonna run us into a deficit with all these crazy projections on the revenue. No one wants to ask the administrator why he supported this budget and recommended these questions. And I see a total, I mean, you know, the reason of, oh, we didn't have the numbers in front of us, you divide by 12. Most things are steady. The electric bill is probably gonna be the electric bill for all 12 months or an average, or at least you can factor it in, or you can do it seasonally by
All right.
quarter.
Thank you, Mike.
So, I've had it. Thank you very much.
Anyone else want to speak at the public hearing?
Linda Tebow, 83 St. Paul Street. I've been sitting here listening to the give and take and all of this going on. And I remember when I was on the town council, even president of the council, the budget ends with the council. The council makes that decision. They get all the information they can from the budget committee. The town administrator can give you whatever budget he wants, but it ends with the council. The other thing that I found most disturbing is the back and forth with people that get up here, with finance director, with people in the audience. I remember when it used to go through the president, questions went to the president, and then she asked the question, and that it just, it's like a free-for-all. Thank you.
Anyone else want to speak at the public hearing? Anyone else? Last time, anyone want to speak at public hearing? All right,
So can I make a brief
yeah, go ahead.
comment? So I just want for the record to show that on the papers that folks have either in their hands, if they got it in the back, or if they're looking at, well, we were supposed to have it on the screen, but evidently we can't do that. There is a column for the town council, and it is filled in completely. And I just want, for the record, to show that none of these figures were discussed. I don't know why they're in here, and I think that the buck does stop with us. However, it shouldn't stop with us before we put it in there ourselves. So what we have different columns on this budget. We have, you know, previous years, we have a department, we have an administrator proposal, we have a budget committee, and the town council normally is blank, and we fill it in as we go along. So we do indeed have the final say, but we shouldn't have it predisposed.
The town council column is filled in for the ease of this meeting. Because if I didn't have it filled in, we would be spending 2 more hours with me filling in formulas. That's the only reason why.
Well, you'll, respectfully, you will have to change them if we change them anyway, right?
Yeah,
So-
but there's a lot of, if
So-
I could show you my Excel, you would see like a lot of formulas in it, and I wouldn't be able to, on demand, fill all of those in. That's why it's already, that's the same thing with the budget committee and the TA. They get their columns filled in, and then we go through and change them as we go along.
Okay, well, I just for the record want people to know that there hasn't been any discussion prior to right this evening, and this is the first time we see these numbers. Whether or not they stay the way they're here in front of us is another story, but, you know, we have a lot of discussion to go before we make any final decisions. I know I do, you know, on revenue and expenses, so just wanted that in the record.
All right, one last, does anyone want to speak on public hearing? Okay. All right, with no one coming forward, I'd like to make a motion that we continue the public hearing until next Monday, the 17th, and therefore continue the budget adoption next Monday, because we just received the budget today with prior year, so we haven't really had a chance to look at it with prior year. And we just received the reserve list today at the meeting, so we haven't had a chance to review that. So I'd like to make a motion that we continue this until next Monday.
I'll second for discussion. So next Monday is our regular meeting, so we limit the rest of the agenda at that meeting then? Okay.
I think so. Is there anything really on that agenda, Joanne? Do you
I think
know?
there's a few things. Should probably set a backup date too.
Monday, Tuesday.
We have an executive session, a few licenses that need to be approved, bills, consent agenda, some updates. Mr. Byron has something about 146 water line that he said was pressing, installation of some electricity poles on I-9 Road, the contract for the school committee and teachers association public hearing, budget transfers that need to be.
That'll never work.
So how about we continue this till the following, the 24th, because we have till the end of the month, so that way it gives us time, since we have to go through all the revenues, and once we now that we can review the expenses, we can go through those, so it gives us a little bit more time.
So 24th, 25th, that Monday,
Yeah,
Tuesday.
24th, 25th. Okay. All right.
Can I say something, Madam President? So, you know, I've been thinking a lot, and it sounds like the discussion tonight, kind of in line with what I've been thinking, but, you know, I first want to say, you know, I understand being on the budget committee is a lot of work. You know, it's not an easy job. The numbers do change all the time, especially given the cutoffs and everything. And I know Tony's job can be challenging. And so, but I think there's one thing I've heard is, and seen is that I think this budget and looking at it is just a status quo budget. It's specifically just funding line item approach that takes our ability, that limits our ability to identify critical programs and services. It hinders our ability to change and lacks accountability and flexibility. It's about surviving and not thriving. However, I believe that we need to be more forward-thinking. We need a program-based strategic budgeting approach that addresses the needs of today while investing in tomorrow. And this approach will allow us to better anticipate challenges and maximize returns. Proactive investments yield compounding benefits, which pay dividends for future generations. You know, our community deserves leaders who look beyond the next election cycle, leaders who are committed to the long-term prosperity of our community. A strategic budget is not just a financial plan, but a roadmap for our community's future. It anticipates future challenges, maximizes returns, and adapts to change in a fiscally responsible and accountable way. It's about spending smarter, ensuring every dollar is an investment in our community's future. But more than that, a strategic budget reflects vision, courage, and commitment, and it requires a vision to see what our community can become, the courage to make the tough decisions, and the commitment to follow through on those decisions. One of the things that I saw in this budget, which I would like to see addressed beforehand, is that there's no capital expenditure for the police station renovations. There's no engineering capital expenses for anything at Hallowell or Scouters. It's missing on some of those critical infrastructure things that I think would be important to stop putting money away from now, so we don't end up in 10 years from now being like, well, why didn't anybody do any renovations to anything? You know, most of the line items on facilities or, you know, maintenance is more towards grounds. And I think that that's an area we're doing a disservice to the taxpayer, because that's only going to cost the taxpayer a lot more money in the long run. And there's a few other things that I think, you know, I'd like to look at, but, you know, I think we talked a lot over the last 2 years of, you know, we need to start looking at things in a holistic approach. And we're just caught in the same trap of just funding the same old stuff over and over and over, and we never actually take the time to actually look, do we actually need half of this stuff? Yeah. And how do we pivot so that we're actually investing in the things that will make North Smithfield a good spot to live? We hear it all the time. You know, we want this to be a great spot to live. But yeah, we need to stop putting out the money where the mouth is and start investing in the things, right? I mean, that's really what it's about. And if we just keep investing in things and we're just always being reactive, we'll never get there. We'll never maintain, we'll never upkeep everything, and we'll always be constantly fighting about why didn't we do anything. So that's just my thought.
Thank you.
Madam President? We were elected for specific reasons. Sometimes it's not fun, so we roll up our sleeves and we get this done. If we gotta stay here till midnight, we stay here till midnight. We gotta come back tomorrow, we come back tomorrow. But we do not, we go through the budget, we can go one line at a time, but we get it done. We can have discussion, we got everybody here. We got all the department heads here. We got the finance director here. Everybody's here ready to go. So we roll up our sleeves and we get it done tonight. We don't put it off for another week. Let's just get it done. That's what we're here for. That's what they pay us. That's why they pay us the big bucks. So let's just do it.
How can you compare the expenses when you don't even have prior years? I mean.
We gotta work through it. That's what we do. We roll up our sleeves and we work through it.
So let's be prepared so we can
We
work
got the
through
finance
it.
director here. He can help us with it. We got the budget committee here. Christine early gave a very good understanding as to why things are the way they are.
Well, I
Get
think-
it done.
Yeah, I think if I may, Madam President, it's against our rules. And our rules are that we don't accept anything the night of, when we have to make a decision. So I think we have to abide by our own rules if we are expecting other people to do the same. But more importantly, I think having information just given to us this evening that is really, I mean, volumes of line items that I think is important that we look at, and we look critically at them, and we understand them before we decide what we're going to do for the taxpayers of this town, because our decisions, though we can't exceed a 4% cap, are going to impact them significantly, not only, and I think what, you know, Mr. Ozier's saying is not only financially, but in their, where they live, you know, the quality of life that we provide for them. You know, a lot of times, you know, we kind of joke around and say, well, people only care about trash and roads and having their streets plowed, right? But that's not true. They really care about the schools, and they care about looking forward, and they care about the pride that they have in buildings that we own, that we should be taking care of, that we have no plan to do so. You know, I'd like to know more information about equity in terms of looking at salaries. And I know people said, wait till it comes to the salary line, but I'd like to know the rationale for that, because I think then you're pitting one person against another unless you have data to support whether it's a performance, you know, review that you've had and they provide exemplary service to the town. Or, you know, you just give everyone, as they say, across the board, the same, so that everyone is feeling that they're, you know, they're equal footing. There could be some extenuating circumstances. We don't even know about that. So we're not going to make everybody happy. There will be some people who will be very dissatisfied with the decisions we make. But is it something you need, Claire?
No, I'm just saying, when you have a union, you give evaluations, but if you think you can give 2% to one, 3, 5 to the other,
Oh, no,
it doesn't
Claire,
happen.
I don't think she's talking about unions.
I'm thinking,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
what they're getting are people are union. That has a great effect.
I think the discussion, correct me if I'm wrong,
If I'm
Councilwoman
giving-
Hamilton, but
I
I
apologize.
think it's about the non-union. People know you can't touch the union contracts.
Right.
And union salary increases.
But more of them,
I think I'm just trying to clear so
okay,
you don't.
thank you very much.
That's all.
I appreciate it.
Yeah.
You always keep me in mind.
Anyway, do we have a motion and a second? Because I would vote to table until we have a better understanding of where these dollars are coming from, what the revenue is.
And just one more thing, I think, John, I would normally agree with you. I was willing to be here all night, but the fact that we don't have clear direction on the revenue numbers and what the finance director just said, I have to take him for his word right now. Unless he can produce the revenue numbers now, which I would still need time to internalize and to make sense of it, I don't know how we can even set an expense budget if we don't know what the revenue is to cover the expenses.
Doug, we do know what the revenue is. Just exactly what Mr. Clifford said. We just, if we want to go back, go down line by line. If we want to go back and we can say, okay, that covers you up to 8 months, whatever that number was, 8 months, so it's divided by 8, and then project it forward. We can do this. We can get through this one line at a time. This is the 6th time I've done this. We can. It's not that. It seems a lot more than what it is. Go one line at a time, and we get through it one line at a time, and before you know it, it's done.
So we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion?
Madam President, just clarify the date. I think your
That
motion
we
was
said
24,
24, 25.
24, and that motion is seconded?
Can I,
24 and 25, right? For the-
can I make one more request? On the expenditure detail, is it possible to get a prior year?
Well, that's what we got today.
That's what we got
Did we?
tonight.
Yeah,
That's what we got
that's what we
tonight.
got tonight.
Did you get that?
Oh,
Yeah,
no, not
this-
that. I'm talking about the actual, like,
Oh, oh.
detail. See, I get this answer every year. Why not?
I tried to do that the first year we started giving, because we never used to give a detail
Right.
to the council. When we went into the second year with it, I tried, but the department heads, a lot of them changed the descriptions within, so like the breakdown, there could be 6 items within one account. But then they change all of the descriptions, so it could be a different 6, or 3 of them change. So now you've got 9, because I added 3 new ones, and 3 aren't funded anymore, and they just keep changing, and it was super messy and horrible to try to follow that I gave up.
So every year, there's different
A lot of
description
descriptions change, yes.
We need some
And
better
I
data governance.
update them for each, like, I put this together based on all the department head requests, and I put their descriptions in, and sometimes they change them a lot. Like, I tried it year one, just one starting year and then the next one, and it was horrible.
Probably something we should work for the next
like a
budget, just
chart
to
of
make it
accounts.
easier, but yeah.
Well, the
I'm
chart of
saying going
accounts is the
forward.
same. It's the breakdown within each account. Ms. Hamilton?
I know what you're saying. I'm looking at one, I'm just gonna use an example, but salaries for building and zoning, that one's probably not gonna change. But you're saying 1 year could be
Correct.
one thing, next year it's a different description, and you try to
Not
fit
so
it
much
in.
the salaries, it's some of the other, like
No, I'm just-
supplies and.
Right, yeah, I'm just
Yes.
using that as an example, but you're saying the
Right.
descriptions change, which then leads to, okay. Yeah. Thank you.
All right, so we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Biragad.
So what we're voting on right now is to continue this hearing and stop what we're doing for tonight? It's so typical of the way things have been going the last 2 years. This is ridiculous. No.
Ms. Hamilton.
Yes.
Mrs. O'Hara.
No.
Mr. Ogier.
Yes.
Ms. Alves.
Yes. That's it. So, motion to adjourn? All in favor, say aye.
President read it too.
Aye.
Kim, DJ, and
That was items, just so we're clear for the record, items 4 and 5, was that in one motion, Madam Clerk?
continue the public hearing and the budget to Monday, 24th.
And then what
24th
about
and
item
25th.
6?
Discussion by council vote of other action on other method of tax collection. So make a motion to continue that to
The same
June 24th
4th.
or June 25th.
So moved.
A point of order, I want a roll call vote on the motion to adjourn, please.
We
Okay,
didn't-
we're
Hold on.
not on a motion.
We didn't do
Hold
it.
on.
We
Point
didn't
of
do
order.
it.
didn't say
We're
that.
on
I said
item
motion
number
to adjourn.
6. We're on item 6,
Right,
Madam
we
Clerk.
didn't do it, we didn't do it, we didn't adjourn. Right,
So
right.
for the method of taxation, tax collection, you
Right.
want to? Okay. Who's making the motion? Was it?
So I'll make a motion to continue that to June 24 and June 25.
Second?
So we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Roll call?
Mr. Biragad?
No.
Ms. Hamilton?
Yes.
Mrs. O'Hara?
No.
Mr. Ogier?
Yes.
Ms. Alves?
Yes. Now we're all set to adjourn, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second?
All in favor, say aye.
No, roll call vote, please.
Mr. Biragad?
No.
Ms. Hamilton?
Yes.
Mrs. O'Hara?
No.
Mr. Ogier?
Yes.
Ms. Alves?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
I think that's it.